कुंभे पुनर्वसु जातो केरले चोलपट्टने कौस्तुभांशं धराधीशं कुलशेखरमाश्रये घुष्यते यस्य नगरे रंगयात्रा दिने दिने तमहं शिरसा वन्दे राजानं कुलशेखरम् राजानं कुलशेखरम् मुकुंद मूर्धना प्रणिपत्य याचे भवन्तम् एकान्तमीयन्तमर्थम् अविस्मृतिस्त्वच्चरणारविन्दे भवे भवे मेस्तु भवत्प्रसादात् नाहं वन्दे तव चरणयोर्द्वन्द्वमद्वन्द्वहेतोः कुम्भीपाकं गुरुमपि न हरे नारकं नापनेतुं रम्या रामा मृदुतनुलता नन्दनेनापि रन्तुं भावे भावे हृदय भवने भावयेयं भवन्तम्. So, third and the fourth verse. So we saw how Kulasekara Alvar, see, this word Kulasekara is such a beautiful word. He is the crescent, or the not the crescent, the Shikhara of his kula, of his whole dynasty. He is the Shikhara, like how Krishna is called Vrishni Vamsha Pradipaha, right? Like that. Even Rama is called Ikshvakshu Ikshvakshu Vamsha Pradipa. Ikshvaku. Yeah. So like that, he is Kulasekhara, which means he is is considered to be somebody who's at the peak of his kula, which means he has glorified his kula. That is what it means. He has glorified his kula. Now last week we saw how Kulasekhara Alvar was unique in his way of expressing his devotion. Which how he would immerse and engross himself completely into the Puranas, into the Itihasas that he was reading about Bhagavan, his glories, etc. How he would get completely engrossed and really believe that all those leelas of Bhagavan are happening right there at that time. Right? That was his level of involvement, which also led to his disinterest in governing the kingdom. Right, his kingdom governance became a bit of a hassle for him, so he slowly gave that up and then went to Srirangam, and which is where he settled down. So we saw last week how Kulasekhara Alvar was completely, he starts off with invocation, right, invoking Krishna and then calling out his glories. And invocation, we always notice some of the, you see, whenever we do any form of satsang, you will always see some amount of invocation that is always there at the start. Could be small or large. If you notice Nuchur Swami's invocation, the invocation, it will go for like 3 minutes, 4 minutes. So he usually takes it that long. And why invocation is required is for both the audience and for the people who are the one who's doing the upanyasam. Both of them, invocation is required to settle down into a certain frame of conversation. Because there is some kind of transmission that is happening in the process and some kind of exchange that is happening, right? So you have to settle down to the context. So contextual settling is important. We can't suddenly get into, it's not a coffee table conversation, right? We are not chuma sitting, having a cup of coffee, sipping, looking at the beautiful mountains and the weather and saying, okay, now tell me about Vedanta. That is not the kind of engagement. This is an involved engagement, both from somebody who is transmitting and others who are the ones who are listening. And for that, the context setting is important. There is a Vedic mantra for that also. Sahana bhavatu, sahana bhunaktu, saha viryam karavavahi, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahi. Om shanti shanti shanti. This invocation is all required to establish that. So in the same way, Kulasekara Alvar is also invoking Bhagavan. Started, and then if you remember, the first two verses ends with Mukunda. Shri Vallabheti Varadeti Daya Pariti, and Mukunda ends with Alapinam Pradidinam Puruma Mukunda. Next one is also Jayatu Jayatu Devo Devaki Nandanoyam, ends with Prithivi Bharanashaha Mukundaha. And now he starts with the word Mukunda here. Mukunda Murdhna Pranipatya Yache Bhavantam Ekantam Iyantam Artham. So he says, Oh Bhagavan, I bow down to you, and this much I want you to do for me. Now I invoked you, this much I want you to do for me, which is Mukunda Murdhna. O Mukunda, with my head, Pranipatya Yache, I bow down and I beg from you, Yache. I am a Yachaka here. I am requesting you. Bhavantam Ekantam Iyantam Artham. There is one wish which only you can fulfill for me. Avismritastvat Charana Aravinde. May I not forget your feet, lotus feet. Tava Charana Aravinde. Charana Aravinde. Lotus feet. Bhave bhave me astu bhavat prasadat. May this be your gift or grace or blessing to me in every birth. Okay, this is what Alvar is telling. Now, what we notice here is Alvar is telling bhave me astu bhavat prasadat, means bhave means he does not care about being born repeatedly. That's an important point to note. And bhaktas of the order of Kulasekara Alvar and several other Alvars, and also like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they don't ask for complete dissolution of births. They seek whether I'm born again or not born again, I don't care. But even if I'm born again and again, may I be, may I always remember you. May I always be in your remembrance all the time. So essentially the devotion or the bhakti that I'm developing now, Bhagavan, even if I have to die and I'm born again and again and again, may I not forget all that I have built, all that devotion that has been built, may I not forget. Avismritistvat charanaravinde, which means there is a lot of effort that goes in being a devotee, right? Being a bhakta, there is a lot of effort because you are ignoring the environmental situations, your conditions, your stimulus from the outside, and you're putting yourself into a sadhana to think about Bhagavan. So it's a lot of effort that goes in. And you don't want that effort to go wasted. See, it's like you watch an inspirational movie or you read an inspirational book and you feel inspired and you want to do something, you want to be in a certain way. Now, when that happens, how long does that last? Right? The amount of time that lasts is probably limited because you go through when you're going through the movie, associate yourself with the characters, with the situation, with the message, all of that, and then there's a certain inspiration that you draw upon yourself from that, and then that remains with you for a period of time. Now the length of time is varied. When you come back, same thing with Upanyasam also. When you go and listen, we listen to all these discourses, we feel a certain inspiration, but then it fades away also very soon. It fades away, and then you have to remind yourself again. So it is an effort. It is an effort. Papanasam Shivan, those who are familiar with him, as the person who composed a lot of beautiful Tamil songs, he sang one song. I don't know if Kalpaka, you know. Pirava varam tharum, Pirandalum, Marava varam tharum.
மறுபடி மர
Marubadi, Marava varam tharum. So, which means, give me a boon so that I'm not born again. Pirandalum, even though I take birth repeatedly, Marava varam tharum. May I not forget you. Because the moment you forget, it is like the snake and ladders. You go, you hit something, and then you come down all the way. And then you have to rebuild. We know this. Even in our lives, we know when we get this inspiration, we go through certain things, we pick up a sadhana, we say, I want to do this. One of the reasons we are not able to do a sadhana continuously is because we take it for a very long time within us. We say for my whole life, I'm going to do this. It'll never work because you lose the inspiration slowly. Which is why I always recommend a mandala. Pick up a sadhana for a mandala, do that, and then take a break. And then again pick it up. Because you need inspiration to do this. You can't do it like drudgery. You can't just, oh, today morning I have to again get up. You can't do it like that. So that inspiration comes from where? It comes from a certain memory that you have created over and over and over within yourself by doing some things, by finding some joy in being in that. When you're reading the Bhagavatam and then you find some joy, you repeatedly do that so that that joy stays established, and then the memory of the joy inspires you to continue to do it. Cyclical. The way we create a bad habit, it's the exact same way we create these sattvic habits. How does one start smoking? The first puff you take is definitely, for a smoker, you would know it is the worst puff in your life because that's the first puff that feels absolutely horrible. You start liking it over and over repeated smoking, one starts liking it. It's called acquired tendencies, acquired taste, acquired tendencies. But the first puff for that person would be the worst puff because he's never had that before, and taking that in causes a lot of discomfort. But because of the company, because of the situations around, repeatedly, this is what they said, don't worry, take another one, it'll get better. So after then a few cigarettes, then he is hooked onto it. Same thing. Same thing with Bhagavan Nama. Same thing with any kind of spiritual sadhana that we pick up. It may not be joyful at the start, but we nevertheless pick it up. Why? Because there are enough people. See, this is the difference. There is Sangha there also. In that Sangha, in the cigarette smoking Sangha, you are trying to associate yourself with such people so that you feel belonged. You're creating a belongingness. Same thing in this. We create a belongingness with those we think we should probably be. Our minds should be in a way of such people. If you don't find people around you like that resonate with you, use examples of saints and sages and rishis and mahatmas and masters and gurus who have lived, and there's documentation about them. Live in the thoughts of that. So slowly, by doing that, you may not find joy at the start, but then repeatedly doing it, knowing that being like Swami Nityananda is blissful, being like a Paramahamsa Yogananda is blissful, because you go and talk to them, all they talk is joy, bliss, and you wonder how are they in that state. This is how it happens. Mukunda Murdhana Pranipatya Yache Bhavantam Ekantam Yentam Artham Avismritistvat Charanarvinde Bhave Bhave Me Astu Bhavat Prasada. May there be birth after birth. I don't care. But you please offer me this beautiful grace of yours so that I remember. And this we require daily also. This remembrance we require it daily. We need to seek his blessing so that we remember him. Now, remember him doesn't mean necessarily remember a person, one individual. No, be in that centeredness. May I be centered. May I come back to that center within me. And it is only by reminding oneself. I usually keep some kind of guru's photos or pictures or Krishna or in all the rooms in our house. My daughter will ask why every room should be like this, right? I would say that this is important because wherever you go in the house, you need a reminder, correct? That reminder is required wherever you turn. Whichever side you turn, you need a certain reminder. I mean, you can put those reminders in whatever different ways, in pleasing ways that you like or artistic ways, but do keep such reminders. Those reminders are important because when you look at Krishna somewhere suddenly, you may have looked at that Krishna 100,000 times. But then again, when you're turning, you're walking, you're looking at Krishna, maybe a prayer comes out of your heart. Maybe some kind of an aspect of surrender that comes in. Maybe you're recalibrating and saying you are in an emotion, you're looking at Krishna and saying that, okay, maybe a Bhagavad Gita phrase comes to your mind. This is how the mind works. You practice this. And you practice by seeking, by asking Bhagavan that may I be blessed, may I remember you by asking this. It is not by magic that's going to happen. It is our effort. May I remember you is a request coming from a place where there is effort also involved. So I want Bhagavan to give me the grace of remembering. And I am also willing to put that effort. So I do what it takes to remember. Unfortunately, for some sad situations for people, they go through some kind of a derangement in the mind. There are people who have some experiences. Yesterday I was talking to somebody, sodium levels go down and then your mind you get into hallucinations, delirious states of mind. Or you become the medicines that we take somehow sedates us. Before those things starts to happen, we have to make sure we train our mind to think about these things. Otherwise, when your mind goes delirious, when the mind starts going into where you're not able to actually hold back where the mind is going, you have lost the ability to hold it back, then the mind will go into complete random places. Because we have not trained the mind to stay Charanara What Charanara We have not focused or trained the mind to remain at the feet of the Lord. If you don't train, don't expect God to do some miracle. That's important. Even at work, the boss can come only and teach you so much only. Even in school, the teacher can only teach you so much. But there is so much work and so much effort that we have to put in. Why do we put in that effort? Because we want it to matter. It matters to us. We want it to count for us. We want it because it matters for us. Matters to us. And this is the same thing. It should matter to us. If it matters, we do the right things. Because the excuses are always there. I am not able to do because of this, because of that. The excuses are always there. But then when you come into a place in your life, remember, all of us will come to a point where we become old and unable. We are old and unable. That situation will come. Several of us, God forbid, we will have situations where we are getting into medication and we get into some kind of sedation. I don't wish that, but that is the truth of today's condition, right? Even if you live a simple life, you see people suddenly getting some strange diseases, some strange sudden heart attacks, some BP going up. So when there are the more medication that we are on, the more the mind gets dull. And when the mind gets dull, the dull means what? You are unable to hold on to the mind. The buddhi shakti is becoming numb. What only remains there is the chitta shakti, the smriti shakti, the memories and the storehouse of memories is there, and the manas vritti that is there. The buddhi has become, the grip of the buddhi has become less. Then we are on a lot of medication. And when that happens, then the mind goes in directions of your tendencies. Remember this. It's very important. Our tendencies are what we are trying to fix. Like we were saying the other day, thinking about Bhagavan has to become second nature. It is not, it doesn't, that is where we need to get to. It is not, in fact, I would say primary nature. Second nature is the way we use the term. But what it means is the thought of Bhagavan or the thought of being centered or the thought of thinking of the divine, invoking the divine, that ability has to be become so core to you that even if we fall into situations of this kind, where we lose the ability to control our mind, our tendencies have become that we are thinking about Bhagavan. Our tendencies have become that we are thinking about the Lord. Like I was saying, many of you know Pramod, my sister's husband. His party grandmother, while she was lying down on the bed, several months she was bedridden. The only word that will come out from her mouth is Akhilandeshwari. And we spoke about this, and somebody says, someone's grandfather said, Narayana, Narayana. Those are the only words that come out. How does that become? You've trained yourself enough so that those are the only words that are coming out. You put yourself through that process now. When we are capable, we put ourselves through this process so that when we go into states of delirium, when we go into states where the mind is not in our control, our tendencies take over, our tendencies think about God. நம்ம அறியாமையே பெருமாளை பத்தி யோசிக்கிறது தான் அந்த ஸ்டேட்டுக்கு வந்தோம். Because then the mind will not go into variety of things, then fear will not set in, because this is the thing that happens. When mind goes all different directions, different emotions come up. Fear, anxiety, angst, hatred, all of these emotions start bubbling up. When the mind is trained to think about one ideal and the glories of Bhagavan, glories of Ambal, Devi, whatever, mind, we slowly start training. Our tendencies become such that whatever is happening on the outside, the mind is constantly reveling in that. So that is what Kulasekara Advar is seeking. He's saying, may I keep remembering you, Bhagavan. Mukunda Murdana Pranipatya Yache Ekantam Bhavantam Ekantam Iyantam Artham. Avismritihi Twat Charanaravinde Bhave Bhave Mestu Bhavat Prasadat. And then he goes on to say, Naham Vande Tava Charanayor Dvandvam advandva hetoho. Kumbhipakam gurum api hare narakam napanetum. Ramya Rama mridu tanulata nandane napi rantum. Bhave bhave hridaya bhavane bhavayeyam bhavantam. So here he's saying, what am I praying to you for? What is the purpose? My purpose is not to naham vande, na aham vande. I am not praying to you, to your charanaravandam or to your feet for release from duality. That is not the reason. Advandva hetoho. I am not wanting release from duality. Kumbhipakam gurum api hare narakam napanetum. I am not praying to you so that I be saved from Kumbhipakam. Kumbhipakam is um, one of the punishments mentioned in Garuda Purana. Garuda Purana is this work where there are different kinds of punishments that are mentioned, saying what will happen if you live a certain kind of life. What is the punishment that will be given to you? So Kumbhipakam is boiling oil. So they'll put you in boiling oil. Bhaji pakoda workra madri, they will fry you. The interesting thing is, what it means is you will go through so much pain as though it will feel like you're being fried. See, a lot of times we say, right, even at workplace or in the house situations, they'll come out. People have this when they go to a meeting with the manager, one-to-one meeting, they'll come out, they'll say, he fried me, pa.
போட்டு வறுத்து எடுத்துட்டாரு அப்படின்னு.
வறுத்து எடுத்துட்டாரு. That feeling of frying is what is indicated. Doesn't necessarily mean that, there's some oil sitting there boiling and you'll feel as though you're tossed and turned and there's a lot of heat generated, being fried. So so I'm saying I am not asking for release of that. Kumbhi pakam gurumapi hare narakam napanetum. Then I am not Ramya Rama Mridu Tanulata Nandane Napirantum. So I am not seeking any form of pleasures of beautiful women who are residing in celestial planes, Swargaloka, like Apsaras. I am not asking for that. I only ask your lotus feet, the bhave bhave hridaya bhavane bhavayeyam bhavantam. The only reason I am asking you that I want to think of you is so that I can think of you only. So that it's why am I asking you, may I think of you? Because I want to think of you. That is all. There is no other reason. Basically, that is the summary of what he's saying. It doesn't matter what you offer me in exchange. This is important to notice. See, he's saying, Bhagavan, we look at our prayers. If 3 times you pray to Bhagavan and we don't get what we want, we will say, Poda, in the Bhagavan namak vendam. I don't want him. We reject. He will say, நீ creator ஆவது மண்ணாங்கட்டி ஆவது. I've got nothing to do with you. You don't, if somebody told me I do this Purusha Suktam 10 times, I will get this. Nothing happened. Because our engagement is transactional and it is not, you don't have to tell somebody. In your heart, in your heart, it is transactional. How many times have we just stood there or sat there and just closed our eyes and just enjoying the joy of being in the presence of Bhagavan, being in the presence of Satsanga, being in the presence of Sankirtanakaras, just listening and finding that joy. Listening to Hanumat bhajans or Rama bhajan or Krishna bhajan or Sankirtanam, just listening, sitting there. And when that bhajan or Sankirtan happens, just having tears, listening, because that moment you're enjoying that presence and that joy and that state of absorption. That is all. Right? Don't immediately at that state, feeling of high state, suddenly throw out a prayer saying that, oh Bhagavan, can you make this happen for me? Finished. He is not going to change anything there. But what is happening within is the problem. The intoxication of Sankirtanam should be because of the Sankirtanam itself, not because you're getting something else besides the intoxication. You understand? When we're saying that I want to think of Bhagavan, the question comes, why? Then the answer is, because I want to think of Bhagavan. When we were young, school late, when we reach the school late, we go into the classroom. Teacher will say, why are you late? Teacher coach, sorry teacher, I am late. அது தெரியும் எனக்கு. Why தானே கேக்குறேன்.
லேட் ஆயிடுது டீச்சர்.
லேட் ஆயிடுது டீச்சர்.
ஏதாச்சுனாக்கா இல்ல லேட் டைம் ஆயிடுது அப்படின்னு.
டைம் ஆயிடுது. We'll just repeat the same thing. That is how we should be. That is actually a good practice. Somebody asking us, why are you praying? Because I want to pray. So the finding of the joy in the act that you're doing is the purpose of that act. So the finding of joy is important. That is the purpose. There is no other purpose than finding the joy in that act. If you're looking for some other purpose that's going to come out, that becomes transactional. And then it will not last long. Eventually, at some point, it will start dwindling, it will start slowly deteriorating, and then our trust in the process will go away. We lose trust in the process that, if I sit and I do this, these methods, I do dhyana, sankirtanam, prayer, whatever I do, it leads me to a place of an inner joy. That trust in the process will go away if our engagement is transactional. Because the results that you may get from an external standpoint may vary. In fact, spiritual sadhakas go through a dry spell. Very devout or very spiritual sadhakas who are intense on the path also go through dry spells. Dry spell means there may be times when they hit a plateau. They're just doing what they're doing, but they're not feeling that exhilaration or excitement or this joy welling up. They're not feeling. Suddenly it'll feel a little dry. This will happen. But trusting in the process is important. Hold on to it. Keep doing, keep doing, keep doing. This is an important verse to remind ourselves, saying that if I am thinking about you, Bhagavan, the only reason I'm thinking about you is so that I can think about you. So, the important thing here to note is what is the source or the desire for me to do any form of spiritual sadhana, be it dhyanam, japa, tapa, sankirtanam, regular chanting, prayers, or whatever. What is this? Where is the source of desire to do that? It can be transactional. I am not saying it should not be transactional, but all I'm saying is it should not be only transactional. We have to rise above the need for it to be transactional only. We have to rise above that need. And then you will see slowly, when somebody sees us, the people around will notice us. They will recognize, கல்பகா பையனுக்கு அவன் பாடுற விடுறது இல்ல அவன். we will notice that slowly when people also see us, they will see a certain level of joy and contentment. There's no hankering. They'll say, அவரை பார்த்தாலே நமக்கு நிம்மதியா இருக்குன்னு. Just by looking at that or seeing that person or being in that person's presence, I am feeling peaceful. Don't have to do anything. So that is what we are. Of course, somebody doesn't say that doesn't mean that. I mean, the validation doesn't have to come from the outside, but validation from outside is useful. It is very useful. If people carry a memory wherever we go, people carry a memory that, oh, this person comes is always cribbing about something. Or always talking about some political things that are happening, or talking about gossiping about several things. Over time, you will notice that person you will probably engage for the period of time. But being in the presence of that person can be draining for you just by being in that presence. So if we can build ourselves and develop ourselves in a way where we say, Bhagavan, whether you put me into hell, kumbhi pakam, you put me into frying, or you put me through repeated births, I am not asking all of this for that. Likewise, I am not asking it so that I can get access to beautiful girls in the heavens in the gardens of heaven. I'm not asking for any of that. I am just asking so that I find joy in just doing this. This is important, right? In fact, it is said that those who are even Vedanta masters, they say that we always go and want to listen to Vedanta because there is a joy. Let that be. One second. So our attempt in this process is to stay with the process. Believe in the process, have faith in the process, and stay with the process. Process is what they're saying, that do everything that takes you to the lotus feet of the Lord. Whether we are at work, whether we are at family, whether we are at ourselves, whether we are awake, whether we are wanting to sleep, at all times find moments to bring yourself to that centeredness. Every moment, try to bring our mind to that centeredness. And do whatever we are doing. Bring the mind, do whatever we're doing. Bring the mind, do whatever we're doing. This kind of training, then we get to the state where Kulasekar Alvar is saying, Naham vande tava charanayor dvandvam advandva hetoho kumbhi pakam gurum api hare narakam napanetum ramya rama mrudu tanulata nandane napirantum bhave bhave hridaya bhavane bhavayeyam bhavantam. So this is the fourth verse. We'll pause here today. Om Kayena Vacha Manasendriyerva Buddhyatmana va Prakrite Swabhavat Karomi Yatyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayanayeti Samarpayami Sadashivayeti Samarpayami Jagadambikayeti Samarpayami Sadgurunathayeti Samarpayami Hari Om Tat Sadgurubhyo Namaha. Gurudeva.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you.